The Saône is a river of eastern France. It is a right tributary of the Rhône, rising at Viermenil in the Vosges department and joining the Rhône in Lyon, just south of the Presqu'île. The name Saône derives from that of the Gallic river goddess Saône, which has also been connected with a local Celtic tribe, the Sequanes. Monastic copyists progressively transformed Saône to Saône, which ultimately gave rise to Saône. The other recorded ancient names for the river were Brigulus and Ara. Geography. The Saône rises at Viermenil at the foot of the cliff of the Forcallis in the Vosges at an elevation of 392 meters, and flows into the Rhône at Lyon at an elevation of 158 meters. Its length is 480 kilometers. Its largest tributary is the Doubs, upstream of receiving the Doubs at Verdun-sur-le-Doubs in Saône-et-Loire. The Saône is called the Petite Saône, which reflects the large contribution of the Doubs to the Saône. In fact, the Doubs' mean annual flow rate is slightly stronger than that of the Petite Saône, 175 cubic meters per second compared to 160 cubic meters per second. Some thus assert that it is in fact the Saône that flows into the Doubs. Nonetheless, the Saône has a substantially larger watershed than the Doubs, at 11,500 square kilometers versus 7,500 square kilometers. At 30,000 square kilometers, the Saône has the largest watershed of any French river that does not flow directly into the sea, covering approximately 1/18 of metropolitan France. In pre-Roman times the river's name was Ara, a doubling of the Indo-European root Ar. According to Caesar's Gallic Wars, this doubling reflected the idea that it was difficult to identify the direction of the river due to its slow rate of flow. Its current name came from a sacred spring, Saône, located at Chalon, which was used by Roman legionaries to refer to the entire river. Departments and cities traversed by the Saône: Vosges, Darny, Montreux-sur-Saône, Châtillon-sur-Saône, Haute-Saône, Jean-Valcourt, Jussy, Port-sur-Saône, Scey-sur-Saône, Grès, Côte-d'Or, Auxonne, Saint-Jean-de-Losne, Sierra, Saône-et-Loire, Verdun-sur-le-Doubs, Chalon-sur-Saône, Tournus, Macon, Créches-sur-Saône, Rhône, Belleville-sur-Saône, Villefranche-sur-Saône, Annecy, Neuville-sur-Saône, Fontaine-sur-Saône, Callur-et-Quire, Lyon, Ain, Vassy, Gisants-Riotier, Trévoux. Main tributaries of the Saône: R indicates a right tributary, L indicates a left tributary. Navigation: the Saône is classed as navigable after its confluence with the Coney at Caen in the north of Haute-Saône all the way to its confluence with the Rhône at La Mule-les-Chères, in Lyon. The navigable stretch is over 365 kilometers long, of which 167 kilometers is European large gauge. The Saône is linked with the Loire by the Canal du Centre, with the Yonne by the Canal de Bourgogne, with the Marne by the Canal entre Champagne et Bourgogne, with the Meuse by the Canal de l'Ay, whose southern branch has been renamed the Canal des Vosges, and with the Rhine by the Canal du Rhône-au-Rhin. All the canals are Freycinet gauge. None of these three connect the Saône to any other body of water, however. Hydrology. The lesser Saône has a tendency to flood, with a very strong oceanic effect. The soils are not susceptible to much infiltration, so that they saturate quickly, which contributes to surface runoff. The flow rate grows very quickly, and after receiving the waters of the Lanterne, the Saône already becomes a powerful river. The mean annual flow rate, or discharge, of the Saône has been measured over 50 years at the Ray-sur-Saône hydrological station, situated about 30 kilometers after the Lanterne confluence between Port-sur-Saône and Grès. The figure is 59.7 cubic meters per second for a watershed area of 3,740 square kilometers, and has an annual maximum of 64.5 cubic meters per second and a minimum of 54.8 cubic meters per second. The river exhibits seasonal variations in flow rate, with winter floods from 84 to 108 cubic meters per second from December to March inclusive, and summer reductions in July, August, September falling to a monthly average of 16.9 cubic meters per second in August. The runoff curve number in the upper basin of the Lesser Saône is 505 mm annually, cf. 687 mm for the Lanterne, an elevated figure resulting from the very high rainfall in the Voston part of its watershed. The specific flow rate rises to 16.0 liters per second per square kilometer of watershed. The maximum instantaneous recorded flow rate was 930 cubic meters per second on December 19, 1982. The Greater Saône is formed by the confluence of the Doubs and the Lesser Saône at Verdun-sur-le-Doubs. The Doubs brings a mean annual flow rate of 175 cubic meters per second, and the Lesser Saône, 160 cubic meters per second. The Greater Saône has only modest tributaries which have little effect on floods or other hydrological properties. It flows in a vast plain approximately 3 kilometers wide as far as Lyon in the basin of the former Bressan Lake. The slope is very gradual, and without hydraulic projects up to the north of Chalon aimed at guaranteeing a deep navigation channel. Overflows would be more frequent. At the Causson-Aumont-d'Or hydrological station, where the river enters the Lyon area, measurements taken between 1969 and 1986 revealed a mean annual flow rate of 473 cubic meters per second, with a 100-year flood flow rate of 3,180 cubic meters per second. The runoff curve number from the river's entire watershed is 501 millimeters, and the specific flow rate rises to 15.8 liters per second per square km of watershed. Average flow rate mean monthly discharge hydrological station. Causson-Aumont-d'Or source. Banque Hydro, station U47100100. Overall, the average flow rate in Lyon is 475 cubic meters per second, with a minimum of 153 cubic meters per second in August, and a maximum of 954 cubic meters per second in February. Historic floods. When the Saône floods, the impact varies considerably over the course of the river. A large flood with a strong flow rate upstream can be largely attenuated in the Bressan plain so as to have only moderate impact at Macon, particularly if it carries a limited volume of water. By contrast, a medium-sized flood of the Lesser Saône can turn into a significant flood downstream, if the Doubs brings in a similar contribution at about the same time. Historic floods include the Lyon flood of 580, the floods of 1602 during the autumn equinox and of 1711, the flood of November 1840, with an estimated flow rate of almost 4,000 cubic meters per second, destroyed numerous habitations along the river valley. Many plaques marking this serious event are still visible in the villages affected. The high water measured at flood scales reached 8.05 meters at Macon and 7.28 meters at Chalon, or about 6 and 5.5 meters respectively above normal levels. The flood of May 1856, the largest floods in the last 50 years as of 2006. January 1955, March 1970, December 1981 and 1982, May 1983, March 2001 and 2006. The reference flood in town planning is the 100-year flood. This reference was in the course of being modified as maps linked to modeling the 1840 flood in modern town planning conditions were distributed to local mayors in December 2008, and as new prevention plans were ordered for 2012. A plaque commemorating the flood of 1840 at Quincy. Historic floods since 1950 equals North Saône-et-Loire. Indicators of the level of historic floods of the Saône on the Church of Notre-Dame de Belleville.